Theme song for the Gear Podcast. This is take 2 because I forgot to hit record, everybody. Welcome to the Gear Podcast. Uncle Leon, how you feeling today, mate?
Pretty good, mate. Pretty good. Feel like we're trying to run ourselves into some form here, get back to the regular episodes. It's a good feeling.
Yep.
And thank you to everybody who continues to listen to or suffer through our ramblings and rantings about guitar gear. You can subscribe to the Gear Podcast on your favorite platform or subscribe to our new YouTube channel where I've been uploading these video podcast episodes, Troy, so people can see us and hear us and engage with all the wonderful things we want to talk about. How was your week, mate? What did you get up to? Busy?
Busy. Like, I won't go into it. There was a lot of stuff that happened, and look, mostly it's been okay. I've got some new gear. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Been making some money, so that means more new gear in the future. So all in all, pretty good, mate. What about you? So you did a gig on Sunday night?
Yeah, we had Perth Rocks Festival, so that was like the annual catch-up with all the people I know in bands who I never see because I'm always gigging when they're gigging.
Mm-hmm.
And we played, technically we headlined. I mean, we just played last, so, does that mean you're the headliner? Apparently it does, but it was good fun. Port Beach Garden Bar, they've built that out a lot. It was a 2-stage thing, so you had an indoor stage and an outdoor stage, and they added some extra staging and some pyro, and, anytime I walked out near the pyro, I got that wonderful smell of my hair burning. Got a few worthwhile shots out of it as well. So, yeah, it was pretty good fun. Right at the end, we got sort of all the other people from all the bands up on stage with us, and that was a good vibe. So, yeah, thanks to everyone who came out and, got to make loud guitar noises, which is always fun. And then this week has kind of just disappeared into the ether so far. We're recording this on Thursday, the 19th of September at 2:34 p.m., Troy. And I actually don't know where the week's gone, but that happens sometimes.
Mate, it was Fifey's birthday yesterday, so that's what's everyone's all
there you go. Everyone was pumped up for that one. The Prince of Perth himself.
But before you launch in properly, we better do a little footy update for all of our support, our friends. So, mate,
I think that's what it might be. The fact that I don't have that much invested in the football, so I can just enjoy the spectacle. That's actually some good semi-finals. For anyone who knows the AFL final systems, prelims are normally, that's the preliminary finals. They're the games you want to watch. But the semis this year, mate.
Oh my God, they're amazing. The GWS, the biggest choke of all time, that was pretty good. Good to witness. I actually like them, but, it's a shame.
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping they would win, but good on the mighty Brisbane Lions. And far out, mate. The Hawks.
Yeah, Hawks are out. Can't help you. You're not flying anywhere.
Exactly. So, I mean, they could have. Sometimes you just have those games where either team could have won it.
Yep.
So, what do you think, Troy, is going to be the worst possible grand final matchup? Do you think Geelong Port is the one no one wants to see?
You know what? It's a little hard to tell. Well, hang on. So, Brisbane, Sydney, Brisbane, Port. I'm trying to think. They're all kind of rematches, which is kind of. Yeah. Do you see the thing where it's like, obviously Sydney when they were the Bloods versus the Fitzroy Lions? The last time they faced off in a grand final was in 1897. So that would be interesting because every other team has faced off sort of recently.
It speaks volumes to the rich and deep history of our beloved game, Troy.
The greatest game on
every
earth.
Other team except the Gold Coast Suns because, apologies to any Gold Coast Suns fans, of which I believe there are probably zero. Yeah.
But what do you think about, really quickly before we do talk about stuff, Jack Darling to North Melbourne, done, happened, it's gone.
Well, JD, I mean, I was talking to a friend yesterday and he made the point that Eagles fans love to hate Jack Darling. And he's basically like, in any other team, he'd be the third tall, but he's playing as the second tall. He's been JK's Robin to JK's Batman for so long. He's actually hell good. I mean, everyone laughs at him because he dropped, a couple of chess marks in the grand final. And I mean, maybe he's not a big game player, but he's kicked 40, 50 goals a year a lot of times. 2018, he basically played like Wayne Carey the whole season and they won the flag. So, yeah.
We'll go to North. Maybe he'll be number 18 and do it again.
Yeah, exactly. I saw a thing where I forget who was sort of saying this is a weird trade. It might have been David King making the point saying, mate, apparently he trains the house down and he sets professional standards and that's what they need. So Nick Larkey's going to have a big year because JD's going to be in there showing him the ropes and how to be a human man beast.
A human man beast. Well, yeah, good luck to you.
There you go.
And
farewell, Jack Darling. You served the Eagles pretty well. 14 years into his career.
Yeah,
crazy.
98 games he's had with the Eagles. That's a long time to take.
It's kind of a shame he didn't get to the big 3K, but it's also very fitting that he got to 298. So yeah, hopefully the Eagles have a better year than North next year.
Yep,
just cause.
And
now, Troy.
Yeah, go on, mate.
Oh, I was going to say, who's your tip to make the granny?
Ooh, well, apparently, statistically, I think the Lions haven't beaten Geelong in Victoria in like 20 years or something. And Sydney's record against Port is actually very poor as well. And you remember a couple of months ago, Port smashed Sydney by like 112 points.
112 points,
So with those things in mind, I'm gonna say it's gonna be a Port Brisbane grand final this year.
Oof. Yeah, I wouldn't.
2004 rematch, mate. 20 years later.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Cool.
That'd be fun. I reckon the Swannies, given their professional standards and mindset against the flaky Port Adelaide, I feel like Port have played their grand final, as they say.
They did.
They had their big emotional game, and I reckon the Swannies, the all-star brigade of the Swans, who basically like their best players just when they need to win are just like, yeah, give it to us, boys. We got it.
I think the theatre involved of like a Swans Cats grand final this year would be quite nice because the Swans did not rock up in the 2022 grand final. So it's nice to see that they might have a chance to redeem themselves on that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's theirs to lose this year. They were kind of the best team for a lot of it. So,
and then Chad Warner can just come to Freo. So, bam.
Oh, is that a rumour?
Oh, mate. Yeah, that's a rumour. Like, not next year, the year after. So, for 2026.
Wow. That'd be all right.
Like, that's on the cards, mate. Like, they're doing everything they can. They wined and dined him, apparently. Like, they, literally paid for a holiday at Crown Casino.
Mate.
That was a couple of months ago. So,
see, this is what I would personally like to see more from guitar manufacturers and brands. It's all well and good to send prominent YouTubers gear, but I feel like you got to wine them and dine them a bit more. Bring it up to that professional standard, like
so
sports.
So who are you talking to, Leon? Who do you want to contact you to wine? Gibson. How about Gibson? Hey, Gibson.
How about Gibson Musical Instruments Corporation? How about all of them, Troy?
What can they send you? What would make you most happy?
Oh, maybe some A5 Wagyu.
A5 Wagyu. Well, let me tell you. I'm going to tell you something right now, Uncle Leon.
How would that be? I could bring it around. You could smoke it,
mate. I'll just chuck him on the cast iron skillet, mate. Give me 5-6 minutes, and we'll be happy days. You know what I heard about is these new Gibson studios, and they're very expensive now. Do you know who told me that? You. Like right before we jumped on. So let me tell you something, Leon. I think that is absolute phooey. And
you know what else is absolute phooey?
Well, I'm telling you right now, if Gibson's listening, I can change my tune. I can be bought. If you help my friend Uncle Leon, then we'll we'll hold back on the nasty talk on the Gibson Les Pauls.
Yeah, but for now it's all
up for grabs. Fuck you, Gibson. Firing. You suck. What's his name? Paul Gibson. Is that the man's name?
I think his name's Gibson. That's
Gibson.
The man who builds the guitars. Yeah, okay. So son of Gib, but also Gib.
Your guitars suck,
Troy.
Right? Yeah, go.
When you think of a Les Paul studio, what color do you think of?
Or like a wine red, brownie sort of a thing?
Wine red is the correct color for a Les Paul studio. Every Les Paul studio I ever saw as a kid was wine red. And they were pretty cool guitars. They were like if you didn't care about fancy tops and things like that, you get a wine red studio, you put some Seymour Duncans in it and you go and just gig it. Everyone I ever saw was like thrashed out. It's like the punk rock guitar. It's the punk rock Les Paul, right? It's the Vans Warped Tour Les Paul. And hopefully you can see this on the screen now. This is, I just assumed it was one of those guitars that was never going to change. And they had a few quirky things like no body binding.
Yep.
And from memory, they didn't have neck binding, but I might be wrong there. But the new ones, I mean, $15.99 US, I believe that's considerably more than they were charging before.
Right.
So that's probably put a lot of people off. But you've got a weight-relieved body. You've got burst buckers in there. It's a slim neck. The coil tap, I think, is an interesting addition. I don't know if the standards have that, but didn't the... what was the other one they made?
Special?
Traditional?
No. Oh, no, there's traditional... Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah.
I think there's
I mean,
another
they make a lot of Les Pauls. Let's have a look. But I remember when the traditional came out, like 2010, 2011, that was kind of like, this is a bit of a return to form for them. So they, this is a cool looking color. This dark walnut standard.
Yep.
This is all these prices are in USDs. Tondi, a Koa Les Paul.
Oh, that's
They've got a bunch of new stuff. The Supreme is back as well, which I think is an interesting model. But yeah, I feel like the Studio was always in that like $800 to $900 bracket,
Yep.
A little bit more than a Junior, but definitely a lot less than a Standard. So if you just wanted a Les Paul,
and
like
now,
even as a studio guitar, you just grab that. But now, like everything else in the
for a
world,
coil tap. Good deal, mate.
Yeah, right.
Good deal.
Good deal. Anyway, I'm really curious to hear from people watching this, what they think about the new Studio and whether it's a yay or a nay.
It could be worse. Do you remember, I was telling someone about this morning. Do you remember 2015 Guitar Center in Texas? And
yes.
Talking to the
North Dallas.
Yeah, talking to the rep from Gibson who said, if you'd like a free Gibson t-shirt, how about you play this Les Paul with the robot tuners on it? I was like, okay. And it was one of the worst guitar experiences of my life. Like, it was a dog shit guitar. Terrible. Neck was weird. Looked weird.
That thing.
Couldn't put it on drop D
sucked.
without like having a degree in fucking electronics. Like, mate.
I distinctly remember you grabbing the guitar and like muscle memorying to drop D.
Yeah.
Like just the first thing you did, and you were like, what's going on? And he was like, don't do that.
Yeah. It's bad. It was bad. Like, I was saying to these people this morning too, it's funny because that technology clearly just didn't take off. Like, not just with...
And you know what? The technology actually works pretty well. I don't know why they changed the guitar so much. Like, remember it had a brass nut and a weird wide neck?
Yeah, the
it just
neck
didn't
was
feel
weird.
like a Les Paul.
That was terrible. Like, it was a bad feeling guitar. So, anyway, that was... Just, I don't know, maybe Gibson just don't change the thing. Like, everyone else can change what they do. Gibson just do the same thing. Make the guitars where the headstock flies off if the case falls over, you know what I mean? Like,
and also just don't, just put your guitar back in its case.
Could do.
That solves it. Mate, you don't want to get hurt, don't get in the ring. Don't buy a Les Paul. But I was going through a thing. Remember so I had this moment of supreme confusion where I was like trying to remember the difference between a standard, a traditional, and a classic. Then I was reminded of 90s Les Pauls where you had the standard, the standard plus, the standard premium plus, the classic plus, and then the custom and the custom plus. All like, it was just pimped out options. But then the traditional was like a 2010-ish kind of. Didn't Laura have one? I remember hers being like really cool, like iced tea. And it was like just a good Les Paul.
Yeah, she had a good one. There was a couple of good Les Pauls I played around 10 years ago. Like, I mean, it wasn't specifically that era, but there was like a period where like a lot of good Les Pauls kind of came through the studio. But I think there was a VOS one that was one of my favorites, and I really regret not buying it off the guy that had it, and he ended up getting a bit shafted with who he sold it to, which it's a story for a different time. But
that's a shame.
Anyway, I'm not in the market for a Gibson Studio. But in saying that, I did think about it recently when another guitar came up. I was like, maybe I should. I don't need another guitar. What am I talking about?
Yeah, they also had the traditional Pro, which in true Gibson fashion,
you have to be a professional. Of course,
they did.
You've got to spend 3 years at music school to play that one.
Yeah, mate. If you're not a pro, don't even think about it.
Yep.
So that was one new thing. Another new thing which came out that I actually did a demo video with was the brand spanking new Jack. Like, Troy, if I said to you a Jack White signature amp, how much of you just immediately would want to not like that? Because you love some white stripes, don't you?
Not the greatest white stripes sort of a cat, but I mean, I don't know. It's just Jack White has a sound, and the sound is cool, but the sound is not my sort of thing. So I typically would turn off from like any media about it. But then I saw you did the video. I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And had a lot of reverb on it.
I shot it while I was in Sydney. I went to the Fender showroom there and did a bunch of videos, and I've still got, I think, one more video for a thing that I can't talk about yet that's coming out, which is pretty cool. And hopefully I'll actually have here soon as well. I'll I'll
See, we
mention
like
it
Fender.
once it happens.
Fender's a good company.
Man, I feel like, but think about the modern
What's the guy's name?
hoo-ha
Fender?
around guitars.
Sorry, go on.
It's actually Fendre.
Oh, Fender,
But,
sorry. Yeah.
You know, they spelt it wrong on all the original guitars, so they just had to keep going into it. You know, one of these funny little situations. But yeah, the rep, and shout out to Heath if he's listening to this. Mad Dog, like such a cool guy to hang out with, so chilled out, and was like, hey, by the way, do you want to try this? And he pulls out this gigantic combo. And I was like, obviously that's like a 4x10 combo. He's like, oh man, check this out. It's got a 10-inch speaker and a 15-inch speaker. It's got a 6L6 powered power amp and a separate 6V6 power amp.
Oh.
So it's got
Oh,
two.
right. So per speaker.
Yeah,
there's a
so
different-
the 6L6 drives one speaker and the 6V6s drive another. And it's got a stereo harmonic tremolo in it. And
Yeah, right.
like the full-on Fender Spring reverb like you'd find in their standalone reverb tanks.
Yep.
So it's got all the extra controls. But man, I was like, yeah, whatever. And I played it and I was like, it was one of those things, you know, where people are like, oh, but how does it sound in the room? Where it actually sounded pretty amazing in the room. The stereo trem on it with Spring reverb and like just a little bit of grit was like, oh, this is that thing that people talk about 60s Fender amps being so great, where I could see it. Imagine back in the day, you've just got one of those, you stick a microphone in front of it and then you record all those, you either just record surf guitar or you record like, you know, instrumental movie themes or something like that. It was like such a sound.
So hang on,
yeah, I mean,
is it laid out like a left and a right, or is it top and bottom, or like diagonals?
no, you have it's like a diagonal thing.
Diagonals, right.
For the speakers, yeah. So it sounded really, really, really nice. And I imagine if you mic'd it in stereo and, you know, got the phase right and everything like that, it'd be pretty cool. So yeah, I believe it was, and we're looking at he's apparently been playing a 1964 Vibroverb, a 1960 Vibrosonic, and a 1993 Vibro King. So it's kind of that all mashed together. Which is kind of cool because, you know, they could have, and I'm sure they probably just make vintage reissues, but, you know, not having all of those things in one, I thought was just a cool, like it felt very retro, but also felt very new at the same time as well. So,
is there any way of jacking into the power amp section so you can run stereo effects through it? It's like an effects loop or anything like that?
I don't know. In my absolute, you know, focus, I didn't even look to see. I don't think there's an effects loop though.
Yeah.
But I think it's just the trem that's stereo. But yeah, and it's got the like kind of, you know, third man yellow. It's different for Fender, which good on them.
That's cool.
And you can send the reverb to one speaker or both speakers.
Right. That's clever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably, I watched a little bit of your video on it. I think only a little bit. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting, but didn't like otherwise tickle me too much. But the dual speaker thing is really interesting. Like, I've not seen that before.
Yeah, man, a 10 and a 15. It's like, it's pretty cool. The other thing very briefly that I want to mention, your beloved IRX.
Yep.
They put out a pretty cool update for it where they updated the power amp modeling. It mentioned AI trained power amps. I don't know if they're using like a capture of a Friedman power amp, but they added a bunch of MIDI CC stuff. So I think that was one thing people complained about when it first came out, was like, oh, it's cool that you can have program changes, but there's no way to individually with MIDI turn, say, the channels on and off, or the boost on and off, or the IR selection. So they've put out some pretty cool MIDI CC implementation, some new IRs, updated power amp modeling. The IRD got the update as well. So I pulled that out during the week. And it sounded really good.
What I was thinking about with that this morning as I was, I don't know, doing the dishes and thinking about guitar equipment, but is the power amp simulation on that pedal, is that pre or post effects loop?
I think it's pre. Hang on. I think if you plug in to the effects return with the preamp, you get the power amp sim.
Yeah. I'd like to try
that. Which I tried with a Synergy 800 module. That sounded really good. So yeah.
Yeah, because I'd like to hear what that sounds like. It's you know, we've sort of spoken about that before. It's just to have that aspect of the sound like models somewhere when you're doing direct stuff, I think is quite important. So the two notes, the version of that in the two notes stuff is pretty cool.
I have used that before, and it's been pretty handy.
Yeah, so I'm curious as to how, like, what they'll do in the future with that, regarding like the synergy stuff, and like obviously the IR20 thing is coming out at some point. Oh, no, sorry, what's it called? The Sin 20, or is it called the IR20?
That's a good Synergy
I don't think it's
20.
I don't think it's come out yet. Whatever the 20 watt like little head is, I thought it had IR in it.
Sin 20 IR.
Sin 20 IR. Okay, well I was sort of close. So I wonder if that side of it will be present in that a piece of equipment.
I would imagine so. I mean, the Soldano Astro has. I assumed it was like a built-in reactive load, but it's actually a power amp sim and IR loading. So yeah, I mentioned that in my review, and that's why you don't assume things. That's why you read the manual, kids, before you just plug it in and do some stuff.
Mate,
so,
I
didn't realize that Synergy wasn't out.
So it's
just went to town on it,
mate. Got my fingers deep in there, So yeah, that'd be kind of cool. It's like I'm still a big Synergy man, as you know. So anything they decide to do on that end, I'll check it out. But
you are also a big Fryette man. And this is what I want to know about. And I still haven't seen it yet, ladies and gentlemen. So Troy's going to unveil a new thing that he got.
Oh yeah, I won't actually pick it up because it's heavy and it's over there. No, mate, it's another new amp day. It's the fourth time it's been new amp day this year, which is a little silly. But I've been eyeing it off and finally pulled the trigger. I've got myself a VHT Pitbull Ultra Lead, which is pretty cool. So it's over there in the rack. It's second from the bottom.
Now, Troy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share. Is it this one? Basically, without the graphic.
I can't really see. You make him bigger? Can you click there?
I'm going to do this. I'm going to open this image in a new tab. That one.
I think. Far out, mate. Hang on, just a second. I think
Pitbull Ultra Lead.
I think so. It might. It looks older. Oh no, that looks about right. The one I have has like a shiny faceplate on it, like
I see.
Behind where the.
What year is it from?
I think it's like 93-ish. I think that was in the description, but
interesting. Well, there's quite a selection now. Yours doesn't have the graphic EQ.
Yeah, correct.
Right?
It doesn't have the graphic EQ. But anyway, it's pretty bloody ripping, mate. I've had only a tiny bit of time to play with it, but so far, so good. I haven't. Sorry, bloody hell! I've just full screen this thing so I could look at your picture a bit better. There we go. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to record it. I've just been playing it through a cab, like the little 212 that's in the room here. It's I think the best way to describe it, playing it, it's just incredibly clear. Like it's. I don't know if I should describe it as glassy, but it has this like kind of like clarity in the high end and the high mids that's just like rings like really nicely. So it doesn't have like what I would. It's not like a thing where I go, oh yeah, this overly bright amp, because it has so much bottom end. Like when I played it at the guy's house, because I just quickly tested it, it was like, I was like, man, is this thing broken? Because like it was just bass. It just turns out the guy didn't really know what he was doing with it. But yeah,
so you bought it from me.
Yeah. So it's I'm not going to say it's like an overly bright sounding amp. It just felt really clear. And playing it today, like I played it with I didn't have the foot switch in when I first got it, so it was kind of either clean or like the overdrive channel, like the high gain channel. So I didn't really try the in between one. And then I did plug the foot switch in, and I just before we jumped on for this, and I was having a bit of a mess around, and I really like that. Like for sort of like that, like Marshall-y sort of thing. It doesn't necessarily sound like a Marshall, but for that, like not overly like a modern heavy metal sort of a thing, but just like
does it kind of sound like something you would expect from the early 90s, like just robust rather than
Yeah, maybe. It just sounds really growly as well. It's a cool sound. It doesn't really immediately sound like another amp to me. And I watched a few clips.
Man, I remember reading about them years ago where people were like, yeah, VHT Pitbull, like that's a thing.
Yeah, they had I feel like mid 2000s, late 2000s, like that sort of era. Like they were really hard to probably right around the time he sold the company or sold the name.
Yeah, right.
I feel like, I was hearing about them a lot, and yeah, I don't know. They just don't pop up very often, which is why I was pretty happy keen to get a hold of it, because I don't know if I'd find another one quite as easily. And yeah, it's kind of like the clips that I heard of it online. It was a lot of guys playing like heavy metal and hard rock, but sort of using guitars with really high output pickups and active pickups as well.
I see.
So that's sort of fine, but I thought the clean channel on it was actually pretty good as well, and not playing it with pickups that are like that, just playing it as a normal guitar amp.
Yeah, which is hard to get on an amp that's so good at high gain. A lot of the time, the clean channels just aren't that special.
Do you know what's funny though? Because that Splore Nitro, the clean on that is not bad. It's very, maybe sterile is the way of saying it, but it still feels like if you had a bit of reverb and some effects and whatever on there, you'd probably be sounding okay. But a lot of times the guys playing those amps, like as I said, they're playing with active pickups, so they're playing, okay. I'm gonna just say, just
say what you feel.
Mate, most people that play heavy metal have the absolute worst clean sounds I've ever heard. It's so awful. It's like so spiky and bright and clear, and man, there's nothing about it. It's like, when people talk about a Fender clean, I don't know if people, some of the people talking about a Fender clean really know what that is either. So I don't know, man. It's I think a lot of these amps that get bad reputations for having bad clean channels are just not played by people that understand how to get a fucking clean sound, which was me until 3 years ago, because I never played with a clean sound, because there was always a little hair or playing rock and roll. So it's not like it's you're born understanding what it's supposed to sound like, and if you do is listen to fucking jigga 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 sort of music, then it's understandable. But yeah. I think the clean on that's pretty cool. Just having it slightly broken up was really nice. And that's represented in a lot of amps that I've played, where I've been like, actually, this is kind of okay if you play it properly. So yeah, so far so good, man. I had a session this morning, which I didn't test it out on because we dialed in for a Hughes and Kettner trilogy, which sounded really good.
How did you
man.
like that? Yeah.
Great. It's the guitar player I was recording. It's his amp. And we used it on a track a few months ago, and we used it for this one as well for all the rhythm tracks. And
isn't it nice when people know what they want?
Yeah, it's a very good amp, actually. They're a funny brand, man. I think we've spoken about them before. I think the switching capabilities of them, that really appealed to me a few years ago, but I feel like in my head I don't have a clear picture of what the Hughes and Kettner sound is. Whereas,
right.
You think of your traditional Marshalls and all that sort of thing, or think about a Mesa Boogie, and it's or a 5150, right? I know what that sound is, and I know when I'm going to use it, but why would I plug in a Hughes and Kettner when I've got those other options? And that's not a disrespectful thing. It's that's the question that I ask. It's and the same as the Fryette. I think I know where I can use this and why I might want to try it for something.
Yeah. There's a reason for the season.
There's I think maybe exclude the dual rectifier, because that's all the modern ones with 3 channels, but excluding that, multi amps that try and do everything, sometimes it's a bit in my situation I have all the amps anyway, so it's less important to have a multi-function thing. I just need it to do the one thing.
You want it to have that one character thing, which when you look at so many people's amp collections, you're why do you have a dozen multi-channel high-gain amps? And you're well, yeah, all these amps have a signature thing that they do, but they also are made so that if you were, say, trying to gig one, or if it was your only amp, you still had a clean sound and a crunch sound, but it's a Soldano SLO, it's a Boogie Dual Rectifier, it's a Boogie Mark IV, it's, I don't know, an Engel Savage, they all are different things that are really good at what they do, but,
that's why I like the Synergy stuff so
good
much.
At all of them.
Synergy, it's okay, you buy the module that has that one sound, and it's going to cost you
you build your own dream app.
So I kind of I like that approach to it. But in saying that, it's not I'm anti multi-channel amps. It's just that mostly, in my situation, it's not super necessary. And this thing, there's three channels. I think it's 2 channels. The overdrive channel shares an EQ. and I guess there's like
Right.
2 different types of gain you can switch between. But so far so good. Like the medium channel of gain, which whatever they call it, was like I could easily gig with that. I have a feeling, I don't know if this is true or not, but like the Deliverance is sort of based off that sound, maybe.
I was just about to ask, have you, obviously you haven't played it that much, but are you going to side by side it with the Deliverance module?
I think I will, yeah. And it's a sort of a fair test because at least I can try like Deliverance through the Fry at 292 and versus the Pitbull.
Yeah.
So
That's cool.
KT88's all around. And
Nice.
you know, the thing is too that the bassiness of this amp, like, you know, with the Splawn Nitro, it's got so much bottom ended and it's really difficult to control. Like it's also a KT88 power section. So it's firstly, I really want to try it through this oversized cab that I've got because that does handle that like reasonably well, like the real big bottom. But I don't know. It's sort of funny to just think like, wow, maybe the thing about the Splawn that I don't like is like all the XX bass and the KT88s, or maybe it's just the KT88s that's giving it so much like bigness that it's a little difficult to control.
Big upon big upon big.
I think like the Pitbull, the clarity of it was like immediate, whereas maybe the Splawn wasn't. Like they're very different amps. You can't like just side by side them. Apart from just saying like, oh, they're high gain and they've got KT88s in them. But anyway, man, I'm really happy I've got it.
Yeah, man, congrats.
I'm looking forward. I might this afternoon once we wrap up. I'll probably blast it through the 412 with the or the oversized 412 with some V30s and see what it sounds like. So that'll be a bit of fun. But yeah,
I'm also planning to play some amps this afternoon. I got a bunch of. Well, I got something in for review, which we'll talk about not on this episode, but in the future, and maybe. I don't know, maybe get one of the people involved with the amp on the pod. That'd be pretty cool.
That'd be cool.
Also, I just want to, I'm in that mood where it's like, it's Thursday afternoon. I might have like a second coffee and just play my old Marshall.
Oh.
And that'll be my way of just...
Big dog.
You know, people get up in the morning and take their shoes off and stare into the sun and ground themselves. Mate,
I mean,
get a guitar in your hands, play a Marshall.
I don't usually wear my shoes to bed personally, but... Hey, mate.
What's wrong with you? You're getting your dirty feet on your nice clean bed, mate. What's wrong? Let's pivot quickly, Troy, to things that are related to guitar sounds. But there was a lot of speculation about this one that I saw, and then it wasn't quite what I expected. But I honestly haven't put too much thought into it, and I'm going to stream of consciousness how I feel about this. Mm-hmm. But it is the Neural DSP Nano Cortex. So you can see it up on the screen at the moment. It's very, very, very small. Mm-hmm. And I believe it's essentially a capture player.
Yep.
So
it's kind of like the Kemper one, isn't it?
Yeah, so Kemper have the Kemper player, mm-hmm. which the advantage that this has over the Kemper player is that you can capture on the unit. Mm. And I think there's just a Bluetooth or a Wi-Fi phone app that you can do deeper stuff on. So yeah, Neural DSP, let's face it, they're very good at marketing what they do. Very, very good. You know, their stuff always looks great. There's a lot of glowy language. They don't mind flexing a little bit. But I mean, looking at the back, the one thing that I thought immediately was interesting was that it's a mono input only. So
right.
I imagine the idea is it's so small. It looks smaller than the Tone X pedal, not smaller than the Tone X1.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I imagine it's kind of they're going for a similar thing where it's like, hey, it's basically a capture player. I believe you can run a gate and their like transpose function pitch shift thing. Mm-hmm. And then you can have their analog delay model, the dimension chorus, and their mind hall reverb. So it's kind of like I guess what they would claim is their best sounding reverb on there, which mm-hmm. is kind of cool. And yeah, so you can load captures, but you can also take captures on it. So the Kemper player, you can only play captures that you've made with the Kemper, the big one.
Yep.
So that kind of makes sense. Like if you've got a Kemper and you use it in the studio, but you don't want to take it out, you get that. The Tone X pedal is you need to use a computer to make the captures, which I kind of like because computers are much better at like training machine learning stuff than a tiny little pedal. So yeah, which also, look, the fact that this little thing is able to do their capture process makes me pretty skeptical of how much actual machine learning is taking place with the capturing. I've always been a bit suspicious that they've just kind of done the Kemper thing and then they put AI in there because AI is a buzzword, and also they didn't want Kemper to sue them over, using their thing. But that's a conspiracy theory. Don't buy too much into that. Look, man, this thing is tiny. What do you get? You get, you can capture on the pedal, so that I think already gives it an edge over like the Kemper player and the Tonex thing. Pretty low latency. You've got MIDI in. It's interesting seeing this is, let's get, so the LED encoder things, but they're not infinite. They're knobs, which is weird. Right. I don't know what they're doing there. I think the other thing as well that I did notice on there was it has a system to tell you when your gain staging is right for the captures.
All right.
Which Tonex do not do. And I think that's the main complaint people have with Tonex is like, calibrating your interface and inputs so that
it sort of does, but sort of doesn't. Like,
but it does. Yeah,
it's very dumb the way it works. Like, very simplistic. So yeah,
and obviously, there's a lot of Kemper comparisons there. So I thought this was going to be like a quad cortex stomp, right, where it's just less foot switches. Maybe still have a small touch screen on there, but it's like their version of the Line 6 HX stomp. It's totally not that. It's a different thing. Again, it's not that much more expensive than like one of the Universal Audio amp in a box pedals.
How much is it?
I think it's $549 US versus.
All right.
Yeah, so
I'm not really
for an extra.
I'm not
$150.
I'm not a neural fanboy, but that's actually kind of a cool product. The capture thing to me is what really sets it apart. Like that's Like, as I could quite easily see that being useful for that much money versus whatever it is, $3,000 Australian for a quad cortex to get that whole system. Like, so I know they just added the plug-in thing to the quad cortex. There's no plug-in support for this thing?
No, and you can't run the amp models. So you've got
right.
Here we go. So you've got a gate. You've got the transpose thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, look, this is the thing, kids. When you are writing ad copy for the average guitar player, and you write things like "no perceivable latency," you can just put that in there, and average Joe on the street goes, yeah, do you know Neural DSP have a transpose function that has no latency? And then everybody goes, yeah, that's no latency. So they just put in their ad copy. It's not true. Like, I've tried the transpose on the quad cortex. It's not unusable, but there is definitely discernible latency on it, and it's not polyphonic either. Then this was the thing that I thought was interesting. The post effects, the high-quality emulation of the Boss DC2 chorus, which sounds really good in the quad cortex, one of the better sounding effects in there. The analog delay, okay, cool. And then the Mind Hall reverb, like, I would expect that you just put a mod, a delay, and then a reverb, and you can maybe change the types. Mm-hmm. This is the other thing which is funny. Again, I'm just good on them.
Have a whinge, Uncle Leon. Just
good on them. Whoever writes their ad copy obviously knows that the bottom line is selling things, and they're very good at that. A high-quality emulation of the Lexicon 224. Now, I feel like when they brought out that Mind Hall algorithm, it wasn't built as an emulation. It was built as based on the techniques made famous by Lexicon.
Right.
Which, surprise, surprise, kids, every fucking reverb that you listen to now is based on techniques designed by Lexicon. Like, all of them. All that means is it's like the 224 algorithm is, not to the average guitar player, but like, it's been reverse engineered a lot of times, and the general concept is actually not that sophisticated. It's just kind of like, oh, you want to like build a reverb? Yeah, kind of this is what you do. And I mean, the Mind Hall reverb sounds good. I don't think it's the most amazing sounding thing, but it also doesn't sound like a Lex 224. Like, they've just like what I think has happened is they've employed someone and said, you're going to write reverbs for this thing. And they've gone, okay, cool. What do people want? Oh, the 224. Oh, cool. We'll bring that up. Oh, yeah, we can kind of do that and implement that. And then, tuned it a little bit and ta-da, you've done that. So, yeah, this is the kind of stuff that, like, I really don't give a shit about. It's just ad copy stuff, but you get this, like, imaginary feature creep where it's like, oh, we based it on some lexicon techniques. Like, no, it's now an emulation of the 224. So that's the first. Weirdly, that's the thing that stood out to me. And again, the Mind Hall sounds good, but it's a Hall reverb. Most people know how to make those sound pretty good nowadays. So this does do IR loading as well, so you can have a DI capture. Mm-hmm. I'm actually falling on the side of this is actually pretty cool, and this is gonna sell a lot of units, and rightfully so, because the capture, like the NDSP captures sound excellent. The form factor's pretty amazing. Like my favorite thing about the Quad Cortex is the industrial design. I think it's like the closest I've seen to something that's like Apple,
Yeah, I getcha.
In a guitar product. It's really, really slick, and the industrial design on that, and this looks great.
Because the Kemper stuff does look a bit alien and sci-fi-ish, which is...
I mean, let's face it, the Kemper looks like something that was discovered in a Soviet-era landfill. And you're like, whoa, this is cool. Let's put amp modeling inside of that. I quite like the Kemper aesthetics, but it's an acquired taste where I feel like this is the default, you're bringing out a product that does something in the modern world. It kind of has to do these things.
How does it power? Is it 9 volt? Or does it need
it looks like it, yeah. So what's interesting as well, again, I'm falling on the side of, like, I'm being hypercritical here because people know I'm often hypercritical with Neural DSP because their marketing claims are always just that little bit like, oh my God, Gamechanger, greatest thing ever, we're the best. Let's put a line on the printed circuit board of the Quad Cortex from Ozymandias.
Oh, right.
Did you know about that?
No, I didn't know that.
They're like, look upon my works and despair kind of thing, which I think is the biggest self-own I've ever seen on a circuit board. Anyway, like cringe dog millionaire, which is quite funny where it's like, okay, cool, bro. Anyway, this I'm coming down the side of looks pretty awesome. The one thing that is weird is the limited effect selection. It'd be nice if they just let you use any of the effects. And it's weird to me that there's no like preamp boost or something like that.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Like a drive pedal. You would think that would just be, oh, hang on, Troy, I might be wrong. Does this say boost on the side? And look at this. Let's have a look. Right down here. Maybe that's a boost for the microphone input. Yeah. No, I think that's probably like a pad boost kind of thing. Maybe I'm wrong. It weighs 620 grams. That's amazing. Yeah.
It looks cool, man.
This is pretty sick, man.
Look, I'm with you. It's a pretty cool product. It's probably not something I'm going to jump out and buy tomorrow, but it's cool. Oh, but there's just like every company has something that's this size that effectively does the same thing now. And they're all good because, of course, they're all good. Like, yeah, if you're in the ecosystem already, it makes so much sense for you to go buy this. If you've got a Quad Cortex and you want something more portable, like, bam, go grab that. Easy peasy.
This kind of addresses all of my complaints about the Tone X pedal as well, which I think is a fantastic product and sounds excellent. Mm-hmm. But I was like, why couldn't they have put a delay in there? And this has a delay and a chorus and a reverb. So, yeah. And a gate and the transpose function, which... I would personally rather have like an overdrive, like even if it was only like a Tube Screamer emulation in there, just that I'd rather have than a thing to drop your guitar lower in pitch, which seems like if you were buying this, you'd probably already own one of those things. But yeah, man, that's kind of, I think they've positioned themselves nicely and they're like, you could use it standalone, or if you want to add capturing to your rig, here's how you can do it, and it's smaller than all the other things.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I said I'm probably not going to go buy one tomorrow, but yeah, another piece of gear.
I mean, like, just man, like, Nano Cortex is set to revolutionize the way guitarists and bassists approach tone, both on stage and in the studio. You know what's going to revolutionize? It's going to revolutionize the next 3 months of gear comparison demos where everyone's going to be using this to be like, let's compare the Nano Cortex to 17 5150 clones.
Mate, sounds like a new content revenue stream for you.
Let's get those clicks, you know? And by the way, be sure to subscribe and like and tell all your mates about the Gear Podcast.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's, again, not what I expected, but I honestly, this is the product they should have come out with in 2020. Mm-hmm. Just a capture player, and then people would have lost their mind and they wouldn't have had to overpromise and underdeliver on quad cortex stuff. And then they should have come out with the quad cortex now, and people would have gone, oh my God, it does capturing but other stuff. So, yeah. I mean, good on them. I think a lot of people are going to like this and use it. I mean, you could have that. You could just, you could literally just gig with that, couldn't you? And you know what? I guess if you want the boosts, just capture the amp at high gain or capture the amp with a boost pedal and have... Yeah, that's... If you've got an amp that you just use all the time at the same settings, capture at 3 different gain levels, use the same IR, use the built-in stuff, and there's your rig. That's sick. Yeah.
Mate, look at you changing your tune on the fly, everybody.
This is literally... Anytime I see a new piece of gear, this is the process. So if anyone wants to know how I go about approaching, if I get sent something to demo, it's like 50-50 where I'm either like, oh yeah, that makes total sense, awesome, or I'm like, what is this piece of crap? And then I have to sit there and I have to go, hang on, who's it for? What's it good at? What's the this is like the market research comparison thing. And it's pretty interesting. Again, this is without trying it. I might try it and then have a bunch of complaints about it, which, I mean, I always have a few complaints about pieces of gear, but I'll be keen to see this in the hands of some people who, the people who rush out and buy stuff because, you'd be one, this is going to open up the market to a lot more people to selling their captures as well.
Yeah.
Which will be interesting. Curious. I'm curious to hear about, this is fresh. This has just come out. So if people want to let us know how they feel about it, or if they've had a similar kind of thought process to what I've just gone through. The 7 stages of grief.
I've got another thing that it just came out like 2 days ago to talk about, if you're keen. Which we didn't talk about beforehand. But... you said like people who just go out and buy stuff and, like day of. So about a week ago, I realized like when I mix, I really now use about like a half a dozen plugins, but I have hundreds and hundreds of plugins like most people. And I get seduced by Brainworks and I get seduced by IK Multimedia and then Black Friday sales and waves. And all of a sudden I own more stuff. And I inevitably never use a bunch of plugins. I open up my plugins list to get a compressor, the same one I use every time, and then I stare at the screen forgetting what I'm doing because I'm so overwhelmed. So I went through, I put a bunch of plugins in my unused plugins folder, so I just had less to look at.
Oh, yes.
And I was like, all you need, like saying to myself, all you need, Troy, is you need the FabFilter stuff because you know how to use that, happy days, and a couple of bits and pieces here, like I've got a SSL channel strip thing that I like, and I like, the CLA 76 and a few bits and pieces. So just don't waste your time looking at other plugins. And then... Man,
I haven't bought a plugin for years now, which is kind of crazy.
Well, here's the thing, Uncle Leon. Then Undertone Audio releases their Unfair Child plugin 2 days ago. And I'm like, this is not what I need right now. And it's really expensive. Did you see it at all?
No. I'm going to bring it up, though.
Well, do you know what the Unfair Child is?
I am aware of the Unfair Child. And I got to say, if you want to see top-notch gear company beef, look up the Eric Valentine Unfair Child video.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It's him and the guy from, was it Heritage Audio, maybe having a bit of a stoush. But yeah, the Unfair Child, it's a hardware version of the, this hardware copy of the Fairchild compressor, the 670, but sort of updated. It's got some new features that Eric Valentine / Undertone Audio wanted to incorporate. So that's great. But
so the Unfair Child costs $11,000 US.
Yeah, $18,000 Australian, because that came up today. And I'd love to have one, but then you've only got one, and if you're doing a mix, you might want more than that. So anyway, they released the plugin. Apparently, it took a year to make. I watched the 55-minute or 59-minute video.
Here
of
it is.
And it's cool. And once again, I get seduced by a new piece of equipment that I don't need. It's $200, man. Like 200.
Yeah, that's a lot for a
on launch
compressor.
It's about 300 Australian dollars to buy it. And mate, I've bought so many compressors like that where I'm like, this is the one. Finally, my life's going to change because I've got this brand new compressor. However, I did demo it today. In fact, not long before we jumped on for this. It sounds pretty good. And this track I was using it on probably doesn't, like, it maybe won't have the benefit of this specific thing on it. You know, like the style of music and everything.
Yeah.
But it did sound really good. Whether or not it sounds $300 good to me to buy, I don't know. But it's just, mate, it's weird how I approach software and what money I'm willing to spend on software versus hardware. Because if I see, like, I bought
hardware, get the checkbook out.
No, it's the opposite. Like, honestly, with I'm an R about a pedal, and an amp. Like that amp, the VHT, like that's been for sale for a year, and that's how long it took me to finally pull the trigger. But there's certain things that come up, and I'm like, oh, that'd be cool, but no, I don't really want to spend the money. Meanwhile, like I bought the UAD Lexicon 480 plugin. It cost me like $500 Australian for one plugin, one reverb, and I was just like, okay, I'm going to use this. Great, no worries. And I probably used it like once a year, to be honest, since I've had it. So, and this is another one where, like, mate, these sales happen, and all these new products get released, and it's sales, and I'm like, yeah, better get it now. Bloody sucks. So I'm still demoing it. I'm gonna see how it goes. It did actually do one really cool thing on the mix bus when I was testing it, but I tried it on vocals and bass and stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, that sounds good, but I probably don't need to buy this one.
Man, it's weird. I always find it interesting when hardware manufacturers have plug-in versions of their hardware and then try to sell you on the great value of the plug-in. You know, it's like, okay, this seems a bit weird that, yes, it's 50 times cheaper than the real thing, but also, and then they do their own shootouts and things like that. So yeah, I don't know, it's a curious one, isn't it?
You should watch the video he put out, because it is like, he goes pretty deep.
I mean, I'll just watch it because Eric's sick. Yeah. Like, one of the few people I will religiously watch their videos because it's so information rich. Yeah, there was some cool stuff, some cool detail that he went into in terms of how it was designed and some of the tests that they did. So yeah, it was cool. And everyone should go watch it after they finish watching every video that Leon's put out in the last week, obviously. Exactly. You can wine and dine me, kids. So, man, that's interesting. It's been look, warning to the populace of YouTube. October is going to be busy with gear launches. There's so much stuff coming out. It's ramping up. I think pre-Halloween, Thanksgiving is a big thing, but I've very much noticed it this year. Like, I had 4 things arrive yesterday, all from different companies, independent of one another, just like got a lot of stuff delivered with like, a week turnaround time, 2-week turnaround time on it. So I got to be busy over the next couple of days, cranking out some demos. So just crank it over the next month. It out. Mate, I just turn up and I just have a good time. Sit down in front of the computer, crank it out. Just phone it in, as we like to say. I try not to phone my demos in. You don't phone it in, mate. It's as hard to phone it in as it is to like not pull a face while you bend a string or like have your mouth move when you use a wah. Yeah, like I think not you, but generally once you get to a certain level of doing stuff, like you just do the thing. Like you don't do it lazily. It always comes out like it's going to come out because that's just the thing that you do, Troy, like our friend Jack Darling, I try to set professional standards for my own work, Yeah. Unlike Jack Darling, you would definitely take a mark in the goal square. A chest mark. Oh, my God. Nothing worse than dropping a sitter. On that note, kids, don't drop chest marks. Go and actually play some guitar. And you can follow Troy and me on Instagram. We're all there. And let us know what you'd like us to cover on future episodes. Any famous last words, Troy?
None. Just be cool.
Be cool.
Peace.